In this lesson, I want to take you through some steps to learn how can I make comparisons using ratios. So here's just a sample scenario. It says each year your class presents its mathematics portfolio to parents and community members. This year your homeroom is in charge of the refreshments for the reception that follows the presentations. For students in the class, give their recipes for punch. The class wants to analyze the recipes to determine which will make the punch with the strongest grapefruit flavor and which will make the strongest lemon lime soda flavor. The recipes are shown. So the first thing that you would want to do is to look at your recipes and figure out how many total parts are in each person's recipe. So I'm simply just going to look and I'll label them, for convenience sakes, by the first letter of their names. Adam equals 4 plus 8 is 12 total parts. Bobby is 3 plus 5 equals 8 total. Carlos is going to equal 5 total. And Zeb is going to equal 5 total. The next thing I would want to do is I want to look at the grapefruit juice. So let's look at that first. For each recipe, write a ratio that compares the number of parts of grapefruit juice to the total number of parts in each recipe. If possible, simplify each rate. So that means like simplify the fractional part that we'll come up with. So I will look up at the original recipes here. Let's look at Adam. 4 parts lemon lime soda, 8 parts grapefruit juice. So it'd be 8 out of 12 would be grapefruit juice for Adam. So for Adam, it would equal 8 over 12. So this is 8 grapefruit over 12 total. And this actually is going to then be simplified. Divide them both by 4. 2 thirds. So his would be 2/3 grapefruit. And then we can look at the next one. Bobby is 3 parts lemon lime to 5 parts grapefruit juice. So Bobby equals 5 grapefruit over 8 total. And that cannot be simplified. That's just over 1/2. The next one would be Carlos, 2 parts lemon lime, 3 parts grapefruit juice. So 3 parts grapefruit juice for Carlos over 5 parts total, 3/5. That can't be simplified. And the last one is Zeb, 1 part lemon lime, 4 part grapefruit juice, so 4 out of 5 total there. 4 part grapefruit, 5 total. So now that I have these rates that are comparing 2 different units, grapefruit juice to your total juice, they're not rates. I would call them, let's call them rate. Yeah, they're rates. They're comparing grapefruits to total. So now I'm going to compare those fractions, and it says which recipe will make the punch with the strongest grapefruit taste. Explain how you determine your answer. So basically, I just need to order these fractions from greatest to least. The greatest fraction is going to be the greatest grapefruit taste. So explain how you do it as I ordered from greatest to least, and the greatest fraction is the one with the greatest taste. So with comparing these fractions, you could come up with a common denominator by basically just multiplying your 3 denominators, so 3 times 8 times 5, and you could do that, but I would recommend doing decimals because I think that might be significantly easier. We should know that 3/5 is equal to 6/10 is equal to 0.6. And then 4/5 equals 4/10 equals 0.4. 2/3 is a repeating decimal. It is 0.666 repeating. I made a mistake up here. This is 4/5 is equal to 8/10 is equal to 0.8. Sorry. So we can already see that 6/10 seems pretty low. It's going to be, so 3/5 is less than 2/3, which is less than 4/5. So we can kind of come over here and start ordering them. Oops. So 3/5 less than 2/3, 4/5. Oh, I said greatest to least, so let's do the count backwards. 4, 2/3, 3/5. Just got to figure out where the 5/8 goes. So I did some quick long division over here and got an answer of 0.625, so 625 hundredths, which actually makes 5/8, right between 2/3 and 3/5. So 3/5 is actually the smallest, then 5/8, then 2/3, and 4/5 is the greatest. So the 4/5 ends up having the greatest grapefruit taste, but in order to answer the question, you come back up and say that's Z, so that is Zeb's recipe. So which of the following would have the greatest grapefruit taste? I'm actually going to answer the question now. I'm going to say Zeb. And this is my explanation. That's what I did. What we're going to have to make sure we do is come back to the original problem and say, it says, which will make the strongest lemon lime soda flavor and grapefruit. So we done grapefruit. We can be like, check, figure that one out. Now we got to do lemon lime. So we got to go back and think, what steps do we have to take to do that one? And that's where we can come down here and look. It says, for each recipe, write a rate that compares the parts of lemon lime soda to the total number of parts in each recipe. If possible, simplify each rate. And then it says, the next step would be, write which recipe will make the strongest lemon lime flavor, explain and determine your answer. So the explanation is almost going to be identical to problem 3. And then, so I'll go ahead and go through this process. I recommend pausing the video and going through these two yourself based on this information. So I'll go ahead and leave this, pause the video here, try and figure out the lemon lime soda flavor, then come back and check your work. Alright, so I figured out the rates for each one for lemon lime soda to total, and I simplified the one that I could. I do think it's interesting that these are basically the inverse fractions because they only had 2 different ingredients, lemon lime soda and grapefruit juice. So like Zeb was 4/5, now it's 1/5, and so on and so forth. So now I just need to order these fractions, and I'm just going to do that work right here by converting them into decimals and comparing the decimals, see which one has the strongest lemon lime flavor. So I've gone through and converted them to decimals, and now I'm just comparing, looking for the greatest one. 0.3, 4/10, so this is greatest so far. 0.375, still the 4/10 of Carlos's seems to be the greatest. And down here, 0.22 from the 1/5. So it looks like the 4/10 appears to be the greatest, so then the answer would be Carlos. I believe that's who it is. Yeah, Carlos's recipe would have the greatest lemon lime total. So here's my answer that Carlos will have. Again, the point of this video is just how can I make comparisons using ratios. So we created 2 different comparisons within these punches that they were making. So we figured out it was Carlos would be the greatest lemon lime, and that Zeb would be the greatest grapefruit, and lemon lime would come down here to Carlos. All right, there you go.